Evening, everyone. It's been a while since I made a video, but I haven't really forgotten or anything. It's just that, I decided that people weren't ready for the lessons. Now that certain events have transpired, it's about time to start talking about why things have happened and what's likely to happen on account of it. So we're going to start off, this is for Americans. I'm not here to lecture the entire world, but I just want to talk about the situation in America. What does it mean to be American? Let's consider that we have this kind of, it's like a chemistry shape. And in the core is American philosophy, American history, American culture, in which you'd place things like the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Civil Rights Act, General Equal Pay Act, Brown v. Board of Education, etc. So if you place those things in the center, well, then you have your typical perspective. You have a liberal bubble and you have a conservative bubble, but both are American. Right? Liberal is all the Bill of Rights and just the general idea that all men are created equal, and then the conservative side, not only are they created equal, they're created by God. You're endowed with your human rights. Also, what makes America tick is our free market type of economy and a foundation of Judeo-Christian value system. So your Ten Commandments, your right to own property, your right to be secure in the person of your home. This is John Locke's kind of stuff. And then we have the tension that's created by homogeneity of a culture and the multiculturalism of a culture. And it's healthy to have both in tow. So generally speaking, Democrats tend to be on this side of the spectrum and Republicans on this side, and then out of tendencies, they're not parties, people who tend to be isolationists versus people who are for bringing people into a culture, which is going to affect the entire bubble. Now, what's happened over time is a number of factors. Let's start here. The Judeo-Christian value system's been devalued in the eyes of Americans for far too long, and that bubble has shrunk. And when that happens, the lack of rooted values about what's right to do, how to treat the environment, how to treat your neighbor, how to treat the public, how to honor the retirement systems and pensions that you promised, all that stuff, it starts to wither away, and capitalism, healthy capitalism down in here, gave way to now a corporatocracy. Now, there's always dots on the fringes of all these bubbles. And consider them like free electrons. The dots that are here represent successful, wealthy people who are part of the corporatocracy, but they themselves are still good people. But as as their power extends and increases here, a larger number of people here start to feel trampled upon. Secondly, above a certain point, a very select, you can count it on maybe 3 hands, group of people achieve the kingship of this corporatocracy. And that's really important. We'll come back to that. Now, as far as what's happening on the left, it becomes a schism. And the schism is between pro-liberal values and against liberal values. And that means freedom of expression primarily, the right to bear arms, right to be safe in your home, right, the Miranda rights, all those things that give you the right to be American. Right? Most of the world does not have those things. Even countries that base their constitution on ours did not often adopt a Bill of Rights. So for those who are pro, you find your numbers shrinking. So you find yourself seeming to go towards the right. But you may consider yourself still to vote Democrat or whatever. But around you, the number of people who are really willing to have a debate without necessarily hating the person just because of their views starts to shrink. A lot of those go over into the conservative bubble, and what it means to be conservative becomes diluted. And there's a sag of kind of, more or less laziness. You can call it a weakness, you can call it whatever you like. And the Republican Party gets more and more of those kinds of people on this side, and then we'll see what's happening here now. On this side, you get people who are disenfranchised, they feel disenfranchised, but they're willing to use the rights, but they're not really necessarily willing to agree with the rights. They start to really exit the system. And along comes a force, and there are various groups. You have extremists from Islam that are jihadis, and they look at the situation, how can they feel threatened by this area of the bubble. They migrate in this direction, but they feel threatened in this area, so they tend to migrate over towards helping this side. You have anarchists and atheists. Well, they also feel threatened by this section, so they want to migrate to this side. And as they do, they're all passing near to other value systems which are actually competitive, especially even these are competitive, right? A jihadi, anarchist, atheist is competitive ideologies, but they end up all pulling away from the core. And as it does that, people in power positions, they take a look and they say, you know what, we're going to take this base, this multicultural base, and we're going to pull it off to the side. And what's been waiting out on the limb for so long, socialism, particularly the Nazis. So the Nazis who are isolationists are obviously, like white supremacists or identitarians. There's other kinds of modern Nazis too. All it means is National Socialism. So you have people who want to, in essence, export their greed via saying, if I take your money, then I'm not greedy. If you make a lot of money, you're greedy. But if I take your money, or if I had the state take your money, then I'm not greedy, even though I'm wanting free stuff. That group continues to extend. And not far away, in a more isolationist kind of system of more total control, you have the communists. They all rely on the fascism. How does the fascism come into play? Number one, of course, controlling your neighbor, controlling people. Rights for me, not for thee. But also because of the corporatocracy. Because the perfect blend of government and corporations is really what fascism is about. And so this fascist system becomes attractive to multiple groups, tyrannical type groups, and they want to join up together. And it doesn't seem like they go together. Indeed, they don't. Now, the longer this goes, the stronger the bubble gets. And pretty soon, the bubble starts to approach the same size. Now you have competition. And you're sapping. It's sort of like if a virus had attached to the main organism, the main host, and is siphoning people away. And of course, friction being what it is, if some of these charges leave the system, it's likely to draw other ones with them, which results in an increasing bubble on this side. And as that bubble increases on this side, the tension tends to cause a mitosis-like split. So that's what's been happening. What to do about it? Well, the easiest thing is to cut that siphon. But to do that, you have to use the law. And the biggest thing is that this group knows fascism. These two groups know fascism so well, they can easily say, you're the ones that are being fascist. You're the ones that are making these things happen. All the Pew Research, you can go look this up. Pew Research 2017, the left is skewing further to the left and faster than the right is. The right is getting more to the right, but it's only by a little bit. The left is really moving far left into these very leftist concepts, and they all rely on a form of totalitarianism. You see, we know that fascism has to be on the left because it's opposed to, of course, on this other side, monarchism. And then, of course, at the top, you have your oligarchism. Okay, so you have, if you had monarch, like opposed to Hitler back in the day was the Kaiser. Not very openly, because they would kill him, but they were worried about him, so they were planning on actually killing the Kaiser because he was a threat to Hitler. That's because monarchism is borrowing this concept of God's in control in order to create the divine right to rule. Over here, the state is the monarchy. Now, it so happens that there's like 10,000 or 100,000 different little tyrants, and they all want to be the main power. And the oligarchs are just able to take control of this system, and they can pull things apart and rearrange things however they want. It helps them to promote a certain amount of chaos. It helps them to rip things apart, because as it rips apart and the pieces move around, they can track it, they can name it, they can quantify it, qualify it, and tax it. And so in the end, the big bubble that I worry about is not really this bubble, although I do worry about it. But in a real battle, we've already seen socialism doesn't work long term. So let's take 100 years out. This bubble will have already died within 100 years. Look at Chaz and Chop. Last, maybe a month, they ran out of food, and the police could just push them out with their own bicycles. What worries me is this one, because of the kind of power. It's now getting to the point where they actually want to leave this system and reset everything according to their own will. So they're feeling that they can detach this bubble and can control it. Will capitalism still exist? Sure, down here near the core, mom and pop capitalism may continue, but in reality, it'll be very difficult to compete when you have another system that has taken the vast majority of the capital and has siphoned that energy and that power out of these other healthy bubbles. And is it natural? It might be. It might be just this is what happens long term in a nation's existence. But it's a shame to see, because that core, that's what everybody really wants to control. And of course, it can't be just replicated over here. You don't have a Bill of Rights over here. You have state control. You don't have a Declaration of Independence. You have a declaration of the overthrow of independence. Instead, it's groupthink, collectivism, that kind of thing. So this is your Borg over here, and it's a foreign invasion of the concept. It's European in origin, and it's been tried before. It's never worked anywhere. And they always tell you it's never been tried, but that's a lie. We have hundreds of years now of data to show that no matter which way you try it, it just doesn't work. So why do these guys continue to use it? Because this destabilizes this, which enables more power and control, right? And why do they help over here? It's because there was a time in which the march of Islam across that part of the world seemed unstoppable. It had its time. Of course, now it's very out of date as far as a system of economics and law and everything coming together. It's a smart system, but it's several hundred years out of date, which makes it very difficult, because the people that are stuck in the middle, they feel a tension. Which way do I go? Do I go towards liberalizing, or do I go towards a very, very extreme element? And where do they find people who are feeling extreme? Over here. But they themselves and they're not socialists. They're interested in Sharia. Okay, so that's what's happening, and the tension that's being put on the system, that's what we're all feeling. And hopefully you can spread the words. Feel free to share the video, and if you receive this link, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.